Okay, good.
Okay, all right. Welcome to the K Vision podcast. This is the Key Vision podcast to listen to if you're looking for motivation, inspiration, and positivity. My name is Tina Khanam, your host and eye surgeon, and we have a wonderful guest with us, Mr. Milind Pande, who is the CEO of Vision Surgery, has been the past UK SCRIS president, and also the founder and CEO of Custom AI. Welcome, Milind. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you, Tina. Happy New Year, and thank you for the invitation. It's great to be on this podcast.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. As always, we always start the podcast going by talking about a pivotal incident or pivotal event for you, or a funny story that you can share with us that led to the journey of success in your field.
Well, to me, it's very simple. I wanted to be a doctor since the age of 10. And when I qualified, I was totally disappointed with what I got from medicine. And the only thing that kept me in medicine was ophthalmology. And that too, because I had a very charismatic guru who inspired not just me, but a whole bunch of us into doing ophthalmology. So that really, for me, has been the key factor looking back as to why I'm still doing medicine.
Excellent. Yeah, you always need those inspirational gurus or leaders to look up to, isn't it, when you're starting in your journey. So now we talk about some of your failures, and I know you've had many successes, but can we talk about some of the failures that shaped you in your journey as an ophthalmologist and as a leader in the profession?
So I don't see things as failures or successes. I like to see things as whatever happens, happens. And you have to learn from them or enjoy whatever comes out of that if you're possible. For me, the key failure, if you want to think of it that way, is very simply that I could not get into a residency training place in India, in Delhi, in ophthalmology. And that's what drove me to come abroad to learn at a place where I could be trained up as an ophthalmologist, because that was the only thing that was going to hold me in medicine. So that was a key thing, which kind of drove my life choices, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. So just how was that motivation and inspiration to keep going and finding better opportunities or opportunities that you are seeking in a foreign land? How did that come about, and what are the wisdom you can impart to our listeners?
I don't think there's much wisdom in it. It's just, if you want something badly and you want to work towards it, then one way or the other, you have to find a way through. And that's really what drove me. It was very tough to get into residence training places back those days. There were only 8 places that you could fight for, and it was decided by a multiple choice question paper, and the first 8 ranked people got in.
Wow.
So I was kind of, I was 9th or 10th or things like that. So although you could score 290 out of 300 in that exam, you may still not be in the first 8.
Yeah, seems quite unfair.
Well, that is what it was, because it's equally unfair for everyone or equally fair for everyone, whichever way you want to call it. The fact is, you can't read the fact that because you didn't get in means you're not good enough. No, I think the key really is, okay, it's not worked here. Let's find a place in the world where I could be trained up to do this, and let's go there. So I initially went to the States, and it was made very clear to me those days that ophthalmology residency in the States was almost impossible to get for a foreign graduate. And hence, this was the only country that was opened up to come and do ophthalmology training and learn to become the best I can.
Amazing. And what fruits you bore from that, because you've given back a lot to ophthalmology. In terms of your proudest moments of your career or your life, what would you what would you say that is, and what's your biggest success?
I think the biggest success, as far as I'm concerned, is being able to become or get the training to do what I am doing and have been doing for the last so many years. It's quite a privilege when you think of it to get trained up, to be able to do surgery, which makes such a big difference to patients. And I can't think of anything which is more fulfilling than doing that kind of work. And that always kind of grounds me, because it comes with the responsibility, but it also comes with gratitude for being able to provide this kind of service and to have spent a big part of your life being able to do this. I think, to me, that is the biggest success, and the whole drive to make it as good, as better, as improved we can in terms of the services and looking after and caring for our patients. That really, to me, is the biggest success as far as I'm concerned.
Excellent. And how do you get that positive spirit in your team? How do you permeate that throughout your team, and how do you drive them forward?
That's a tough question. I always had a very small, cohesive team where people have been with me for years, and hence we know each other very well. We understand each other, and I understand and know what motivates different people. And I think the key thing to generate is, first of all, you have to lead by positivity. You can't be a grumpy old git who keeps getting angry at everyone and expect all around your team members to be positive around you. Yeah. It can only go so far. So I think a key thing is to be able to get your team members on board with your mission and your vision. And that is really a key thing. And then getting them the support to be able to deliver on those expectations well. And it's those two things which, when you combine, invariably gets you a good working environment and a good, cohesive, positive team. It's not easy to do. You can never always succeed, because everyone has different issues in life, and you have to understand each and every person's situation and what drives them, what motivates them. And accordingly, as a leader, you have to enable and empower them to realize their own full potential, which is aligned to your vision and your mission.
Excellent. And in terms of thinking outside the box, how do you motivate people to do that? Because you yourself is a thinking outside the box person. You've stepped away from NHS quite a while ago, and you built your clinic. And what kind of wisdom can you impart from that experience?
I would say the simple wisdom is you have to make the best of what comes your way. My move out of the NHS was not a planned move. I had particular challenges which I had to resolve, and that is what drove me. So in fact, I feel I was kind of driven out of the NHS by what had happened to patients and all that kind of stuff, which I was fighting for. But irrespective of that, once I had found myself in that situation, I still had the dream of being the best ophthalmologist I could be, and I found a way through that. And that really is the key, is there's no point in not realizing what's in front of you. There's no point in not understanding the situation you're in, and then formulating what is a strategy to get you to the best outcome. So to me, that's always been a key driver of things. It's, further down the line, you can express this in various philosophical concepts or whatever, but simply put, it is a way of gathering facts, generating what your options are, choosing the most probable option for success, trying it out, and if it doesn't work, learning from that, to redo the whole process. And this iterative way of working and thinking is really the key to life and everything in the solution. In career, personal life, everything. So I think the art of thinking clearly, I wish I had realized this much earlier in my life, but being able to think in a particular way and understand what are limitations of how we think make us better thinkers and make us come up with better decisions to implement in careers, in life, for our patients, everything. So I came to this perspective, crystallized this perspective within the context of how I would think when I would be facing complications in surgery.
Okay.
And that's what set me on this path of doing the research to try and understand what's going on here. And it became very clear that the research shows that the outcomes from complications is dependent more on the actions that are chosen by the surgeon to resolve the problem than in their ability to execute those actions.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
you approached it that way, every issue.
Correct. Correct. And that's what I try and do is you have to face it. And there are multiple ways of looking at it. So I've been influenced a big way by the very famous book by Nobel Prize winner Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, which really brought home to me a lot of the science behind how we think and our biases and how we become aware of them and how to deal with it.
Excellent. So there are a lot of talk about burnout in our profession and in medicine in general. Have you ever faced burnout, and how did you deal with it?
I've never faced burnout. I can hand on heart say it's never. For me, the biggest challenges have come when I'm undecided in terms of what to do next.
Yeah.
I would really recommend a small book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning in Life. It's based within the context of the Nazi concentration camps and how the psychology of the inhabitants there drove their outcomes to some extent. And there's a very famous quotation that's put in there from Nietzsche, which says, "He who has a how to live, he who has a why to live can survive anyhow."
Yeah.
So it's all about purpose. And
Yeah.
it's all about once you have a purpose and you believe in that purpose, you then have to empower yourself to go through that and take brave decisions.
Yeah.
You may not want to take brave decisions, that's fine too. I think the burnout comes when you're frustrated and unable to get through to those objectives which you think you should have. So there's this cognitive dissonance that comes up where your expectations are mismatched to your actual situation.
Yeah.
And you can't see a way through that.
Yeah.
And one way or the other, you have to either adjust your expectations or you do something to change the situation you're in.
Exactly. So first recognizing that equation for burnout and then changing each factor to the outcome you want.
Absolutely. Either this or that. There's no judgment involved in this. There's nothing which is good or bad. Everyone has their own different ways of looking at it. And one has to find a way through which works for you. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about artificial intelligence in ophthalmology. I think that's one of your brainchild as well in custom AI. Would you like to talk to us about that?
So custom lens AI came about because of this frustration that I've had in seeing that we are unable to get refractive cataract surgery outcomes, spectacle-free outcomes, more widespread in the surgical community. And the fact that only 15% of patients worldwide get the benefit of surgery, which can give them better spectacle-free outcomes. And the two reasons I identified for that are, one, the fact that the surgical planning is quite complex. Mathematics, the statistics, the individual regression models required for biometry enhancement, the outcomes assessment, all these things meant that the complex, to achieve really good outcomes, you have to have quite a complex preoperative processing protocol, which is not scalable in the wide world. So it used to work in my practice because I had a totally private practice. I was not doing anything else. So my optometrist and me and everyone would be able to spend a significant amount of time with our patients in order to generate those kind of processes, the data and the outcomes from which we learned all the time. And the fact that this wasn't scalable is really a key motivation for this. The second aspect of the challenge is the fact that surgeons find it difficult to actually predict the visual outcomes and express it in ways that patients understand and relate to. And that meant we need to go beyond just visual acuity outcomes, but actually outcomes based on individual functional vision assessments, based on objective task assessments, and subjective perception of the prompts. So about 10 years ago, I developed a system of assessing these functional vision outcomes in my clinic, and which was part and parcel of routine practice for me, which included visual acuity outcomes for distance, intermediate, near, photopic, and near mesopic. We got patients to sit in the clinic and perform intermediate and near vision tasks of different types. And we also asked them what they thought of their vision in these things. So again, this is something that took about 45 minutes for my optometrist to do. And again, something which I failed miserably to convince anyone to implement in their practice.
Because of the time.
Because of the time, because of the resource. So if at all we are going to change that 15% figure, we need to be able to make this whole process easy, implementable, scalable, which is a key thing. And that's where technology comes in. So by using custom lens AI, we can make it extremely easy for anyone to do what an expert refractive cataract surgeon will do. So they don't need to think about anything if they don't want to. On the other hand, they will have the ability to change almost everything the algorithms will suggest to them. So it's a platform which is designed to assist the surgeon rather than dictate to the surgeon what they need to do. Because it doesn't matter what we do with digital technology or AI, there is no amount of AI which will get to that level that we could rely on it over and above what the surgeon thinks. So I have a very favorite saying of mine, which says, you need a huge amount of natural intelligence to use artificial intelligence properly.
Definitely.
And that is really a key factor in the design of this whole thing. So improving unaided vision outcomes worldwide is the mission. That's what we want to achieve in every cataract surgery setting, whether it's an expert refractive cataract surgeon or it's in the third world where surgery is offered free of cost from NGOs and charity organizations. Because the impact of improved vision without glasses is huge on people's lives. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing this, because we're changing the lens anyway. So all we're doing is doing it in a smarter way to achieve a better outcome. And doing it at scale is really where we've come up with this custom lens AI and the two algorithms that are based on it.
Okay, and it includes all the different lenses in the custom AI, and any surgeon from anywhere in the world can access it. That's the vision, isn't it?
So this will be implemented in the cloud. accessible through a browser from anywhere on the planet. Mm-hmm. And any type of lenses that you wish will be there. And so the way the system works is there are 3 inputs for the algorithms. The first input is how a surgeon wants to do their surgery. So this is what we call a surgeon preference. Okay. So this is where we capture what lenses they wish to use, how they treat their various, because there are many schools of thought in certain areas of refractive cataract surgery, and there is no consensus that this is the single way of doing it. So we've designed it in such a way so that people can modulate and give us their preferences in those areas. That needs to be done once. So once the surgeon logs onto the system for the first time, that's when they go through that preference setting. They will also have the ability to use preferences from experts or a consensus expert statement, okay? So that gives that ability for a surgeon to modulate and fine-tune the algorithms to their preferences. The other inputs are simply inputs from the patient's clinical history, the clinical examination, and all the diagnostics that goes with it. So the biometry, the topography, OCTs, wavefronts, whatever you want to put in. There is a minimum requirement that you must put in the biometry data in. Without that, obviously, you can't do anything. Once we have these inputs ready, and the inputs are done usually by a technician or an optician, whoever's doing it, in terms of the history form and the examination and the diagnostics and uploading the diagnostics in, then the 2 algorithms kick in and generate automatically the surgical plan. And this is what I call a surgical prescription, which means that each and every bit of the surgical plan is given to you. And as a surgeon, you can modify each and every aspect of this. So it kind of generates a work order for the surgeon. So if you have that information, you can go into surgery without knowing anything else. And this means it'll give you the lens, the actual type of lens, the actual lens model, the spherical power of the lens, the toric power of the lens, the presbyopia power of the lens, what will be the predicted post-operative fractions and spheres, cell, and reading adds, and where you put the incision, where you put the lens orientation, the works.
Now that's going to be a game changer, really. And how are you marketing so more and more ophthalmologists can have access to this?
So we have now completed the first version of the full platform implementation. We are going to this month start on the beta testing of that platform. And that is a crucial stage, obviously. We have some really amazing surgeons on our surgical advisory board who will lead that beta testing side of it. And that will be a crucial phase. Whatever comes out of the beta testing, we will then need to incorporate that into the platforms and keep refining it to that stage. Part of the beta testing is also a validation of the algorithm. So we need to be reassured that the algorithm actually reflects what experts believe it should do. So once that validation is in place, and once we know that the algorithms are consistent with how experts think about their surgery, then we will start on a limited clinical evaluation phase in targeted centers. We've also started the regulatory process, which can take up to a year. And we're going to use that year to kind of get the whole platform refined and ready for people to use eventually. So that's a plan. And having plans always never go to plan. So you always have to iterate and change things. But that's kind of where we are at the moment. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be in this phase.
Excellent. Yeah, really looking forward to that. So in terms of going back to your younger self, you have mentioned, I wish I knew this when I was younger. Is there any top three tips you'd give to your younger self or someone starting out in ophthalmology or in medicine?
The first tip I would say would be to know yourself. You have to understand what drives you, what motivates you, what scares you, what your fears are. You have to understand what your strengths are and your weaknesses. It never ever happens at a young age, I believe. It can't, because you have to experience things to realize what's going to happen. But if you're aware of that framework of wanting to learn about yourself, I think that's a great place to be. Once you have that, the second thing I would say would be to stop worrying about outcomes.
Yeah. Just try.
Just, the science and the research shows that almost 60% of what happens to us in lifetime is not determined by our actions, but by external factors beyond our control.
Yeah.
It's scary to think of it that way, but it's something we have to keep in mind. So almost all performers or all achievers in all schools of domains of endeavor, whether it's sports or whatever, they all talk about the process rather than the results.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the journey that matters.
You generate the ability to execute actions to the best of your ability. That's all you can do. And training yourself to do that, I think, is a key thing. And the third thing I would say is to just enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. Life's too short and you never know what's around the corner. We all can come up with examples where suddenly things have happened to friends and family or whatever. So those would be the three lessons I would say, is very simply just try and understand yourself as well as you can and be honest about it. Not worry about the outcomes in any way, and not let that worry and that fear paralyze you or affect how you enact things. And the third thing is to don't give a damn about the outcome and just enjoy it. It's a simple thing.
Yeah, that's great. Excellent. And if there's one thing you could change in your field of ophthalmology or in the greater sense of medicine, what would that be?
In ophthalmology, I think I'm trying to change what I believe is the biggest thing in cataract surgery, which is improving unaided vision outcomes worldwide. To me, that is a key thing. I find it strange that, in the NHS and all around the world, even outside the NHS and other systems too, there is so poor recording or emphasis given to unaided vision outcomes. So you look at the National Ophthalmology Database, there's hardly any recording of unaided visual acuity. 1/3 of the cases do not have any type of visual acuity, whether it's even pinhole visual acuity recorded in the last audit that we have. So I think changing that is the key to this. That would be my bugbear. As a wider medical field, being a doctor and everything, I would change the system within which we practice and live as doctors. I would love to get more freedom for doctors to take personal charge of their patients and be able to influence the clinical process all the way through. And then we invest in training doctors to be able to deliver that much better, because that aligns with the way our patients see things. They trust doctors more than anyone else in that whole field.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think that's living in a cloud cuckoo land. I can't see that happening at a mass level. There will be people like me and many others who've kind of said, no, I don't want to be part of that system because it limits my ability to deliver outcomes for my patients. But we need to be able to move that further forward. Perhaps technology would allow us to do that. AI would allow us to do that, because it allows us to customize on a mass scale with great efficiency and improve outcomes the same way.
Great, excellent. Thank you very much for coming on to the podcast, and thank you, listeners, for listening to the season 1, episode 5. Thank you very much, Milind, for coming and sharing your wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Tina, and good to see you.
Okay, so if you could stop recording.